Welcome Internet. Today we're going to be talking about envy and relief. I'm going to be talking about it in a way that basically I hope to broaden the scope of envy and its destinies, i.e. how it can be resolved for the idea of relief. So before we start, I should explain what is envy. Envy is a very strong feeling that something inside of oneself is lacking and that someone else has it. That something can be, of course, material, like, for example, having a home, having, let's say, a certain status, and so on and so forth. Something that is fundamentally lacking in oneself that we envy about someone else. And I should say that this feeling starts very, very early in life. It isn't anything that is inherently adult. It's very infantile. For Melanie Klein, an English psychoanalyst, the idea of envy it begins at the very start of life. That the child is envious of the ability of their parents. At the very start, there's even envy in early infancy. What Klein would say from birth onwards. So it starts with birth, but what does it really mean? Well, fundamentally, the child in themselves feels envy because they want to be fed. That ability to feed them, to take care of them, it's something that they're envious about. They're envious of all the good things that mother has. And for Melanie Klein, that mother at the very start of life is reduced to an organ, namely the breast. So this is Kleinian theory, where mother is associated with breast at the beginning. Of course, as a child develops their understanding, as they develop a sense of inner security unconsciously, they get to see mother as more than the breast. Then mother becomes a person, and then what we call a full object, i.e. a different individual, and the child can accept that. However, when there's a massive issue within the relationship, or what Klein called a constitutional issue, i.e. when the child themselves, for genetic reasons, for reasons that are linked with who they are, they can't grow out of that insecurity. There's always a merging of mother and baby, of self and baby, and there's always an envy towards the breast. That envy is often something in which the child does not just want to be fed by the breast, but they also want to become the breast in a way. So there's a form of, really, it's not just having, it's also being the other person. So envy is a very, very powerful feeling, one that basically merges hatred and love, because you want to love something about someone else, but you also hate them for having it. So it's a very complex feeling, and I think that Melanie Klein has a really fair point by presenting it as like a de facto feeling within the human mind, and something that needs to be overcome, sublimated, handled. So often the best possible case scenario is that the child is going to experience a lot of envy because they have good enough relationships, because parents are going to be there to guide the child, to love the child, even though they might have a lot of destructiveness with envy. Because one of the points I did not emphasize enough is that in envy there is the destructiveness, i.e. if I can't have it, no one else will have it. And the tendency that we have in this sentence is something in which the child relates to, i.e. they want it so bad that they want to destroy it and absorb it. But they also, if they can't have it, they rather just have it completely destroyed, like that the tension linked to envy is no longer there, right? But when parents love the child, take care of the child, and can accept the aggression, the hatred that comes with envy, the child is then able to feel gratitude towards that. But where I think Klein could be expanded, and this is the whole point of this video, is that I think that the first movement of envy being healed or helped or digested is relief. A fundamental feeling of as if the envy had dissipated and its intensity had been broadened. So I'm going to show it through an example that happened to me on a personal level. So I'm sorry about this, but I've find it easier to talk about something that happened on a personal level and it doesn't have anything to do with my profession, as I am not under oath, but I have to abide by a lot of codes of, how can I say, a lot of codes of confidentiality, so I'll never talk about patients directly here, but this situation I can. And I'm sorry for the personal aspect of it, as it dampens down the scientificity of it, but I think it's a very telling example. So this example is basically set in commute, in the public transport of my city. A young man and his friend came up to me. I was sitting down reading a book, and basically they were, one of them started laughing and said, "This is a hold up, mate, and you're gonna give us your money." And they were both laughing in a very interesting dissociative way, I felt. And basically I said no. So he started to get angry, saying, "You'll give me your money or I'm gonna punch you up." And I was like, "No, I'm still not gonna do that." And so it escalated. He started saying things that were very projective, like, "You will give us my money, you're trying to intimidate us, but we're not going to fall. You are gonna give us your money." Which I was like, "I'm not intimidating you, you're asking for the money. Do you want my fist in your face?" And I was like, "No, I'm not giving you your money. I am not doing that." So basically it started accelerating, and people were starting to gather around us. And basically he was starting to become more and more threatening and menacing. And there was a moment, a very bizarre moment, because I don't often talk about it. And I don't really know what got into me, perhaps as a defense mechanism. But I looked him in the eye and I was like, "Do you think that beating up a disabled person would be a good idea?" Suddenly, the two men just got up, and the aggressor, the one that was really like doing the aggressive part of it, shook my hand and said, "I'm sorry," and left. And he was all very aggressive as he pushed people out of his way to leave the transport. This example, of course, in this example, I don't mean to say that I know what was happening in his mind, but I found the experience to be very, very telling, because in his aggression, he was trying to get the good things out of me. He was being envious. He often commented on my bag, saying, "Give me your bag, give me the good things in your bag," and all of that vocabulary. At the time, I was absolutely not in this form of intellectualization, right? I was kind of terrified, but that's another point. But fundamentally, there was so much I felt envy and hatred towards not just who I was, but who he thought that I was, i.e. a white man that sitting down doesn't look disabled, so fundamentally just someone that were and reading a book, so all that intellectualness. So I think that it sparked something in him where he was like, I hate you because you're someone that I have issues being, or perhaps I would unconsciously like to be." It's purely speculative, right? But I felt that there was something like that, as he looked at me with high intensity, like really as if he was basically just going to lash onto me. Like I felt really that it was, at that point, was something that was unbearable for him in who I was. And I feel, strangely enough, that when I said, "You think it's a good idea to punch up a disabled person," when I said that basically I was disabled, something in him calmed down directly, as if I had worded something like, "There's no need to envy me. There's nothing envious about my situation, my condition. Your envy is not going to destroy neither you nor me, because there's nothing to be gained through me." As if fundamentally a fundamental intensity had left him. As if it was like, no, well, there's nothing to be gained here. There's nothing that I can really take from a disabled man. I can't be a disabled man. That would be too damaging mentally, to become like him, to take the stuff of him and to acquire the good things. In a way, it's as if I said, I don't have that many good sins, so you can't take them. And it's like, yeah, I understand that. And the fact that he, in a way, showed gratitude as he shook my hand and said, I'm sorry, and left. It was a moment I felt, well, basically a pure Kleinian moment where I was terrified. Like, really, I didn't think he was going to stop, right? And fundamentally, he shook my hand and left. And I saw that retroactively, right? It's me talking now when I've ever talked about it with my analyst. I've thought about it. I've come to certain conclusions about it. I've elaborated on it. That's what I was trying to say. That fundamentally, at that moment, I felt that there was a form of gratitude, as if I said, there's no need to envy. Your envy can go because there's nothing to be gained. And he, in turn, just left, not feeling less aggressive, but perhaps less envious, less willing to fight over this. And of course, and I have to stretch this, it's me building a narrative, an interpretation. But I found it to be very telling. And after that moment, I started to think what happened. It took me many weeks to really get things going. I realized that what I had created by saying that I was disabled, by emphasizing this part of me that was perhaps vulnerable, was that I created a space of relief in the interaction in which he was not forced to confront himself with me, that he was not unconsciously in this process of he's different from me, he's better than me, therefore I have to attack him. Not that I was better than him, but mentally, because I had all the apparatus of the intellectual, this was something that was unbearable. And of course I don't know if he was a good academically, of course I have no clue, but I at that moment felt that in my difference with him, it was something that was unbearable for him. But the disability caused another form of difference, but a form of difference in which there was nothing to be jealous or envious of. Just that was we're different, but we're equals in a way. And that equality created a gap in which envy was able to be transformed through the process of relief. And of course, I don't know what his subjectivity was. And also, and I have to stretch this is not to say that saying you're disabled when you have someone that's threatening you is a get out of jail card. It isn't. It could have very, very clearly worked in my disfavor. And I might have ended up even more badly treated or even more abused if I'd said that to another person. I think that what happened was something very special and very unique to that moment. So please don't say if you're disabled, oh well, I can get out of tough situations through this, because you won't. This was like a one-time life event. But the fact that it turned out like that is something that I really thought about. I was like, why did it go? And that's my understanding of it that I wanted to share with you, because I really feel that through this example, you can see that fundamentally envy can be diffused through relief, through something more egalitarian, and through, in a way, just showing who you truly are. And of course, this is also my way to try and expand Kleinian theory, that it's not just gratitude, it's the relief that starts it, and then with the relief comes the gratitude. That it's like, oof, finally the tension has gone, thank you. I mean, I'm expanding this, because that's not necessarily exactly how he would have thought about it, but this was what the impression was. And at the very end, it's also a very subjective experience, and I might be wrong about this, but nevertheless, I found that this was the right time to talk about it, because I think that in this example, it expands the Kleinian theory of envy and gratitude by creating relief, which is, I think, an important dimension that transitions from envy to the gratitude. It's the relief, the fact that something has gone right. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'm not saying that I'm exactly right with this, but I found it very interesting. That's why I wanted to share it with you. So if there's nothing else, I'll just end here and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.